Australia is about to suffer through a very, very severe and probably record-breaking heatwave. Every time this happens, I see media outlets describing these events as unprecedented or unusual or, in this case, freakish. These events are not freakish. These events are the find out that we get after a long period of fuck around. So last week, the World Weather Attribution Team released a study confirming the link between climate change and these ever-worsening extreme weather events. It's nice that this stuff gets covered, but headlines like climate change is causing more of these bushfires, I feel doesn't really do it justice. If you are an Australian who's about to suffer through a week of oven-like temperatures and deadly bushfires, it's worth knowing that these things are happening at their new horrific intensity thanks to the actions of specific people. Specific people who have chosen to continue burning fossil fuels, knowing that A, there are really fucked consequences for doing so, and B, there are very cheap, readily available alternatives. Also last week, a really cool organization called Influence Map released an update of the Carbon Majors database where you can look up the emissions of any fossil fuel company or state-owned institution in the world. Santos, Woodside, and Whitehaven Coal are 3 Australian fossil fuel companies, and together they've released 2.6 gigatons of emissions over the years that they've been operating. They are choosing to do this. Also last week, an energy utility called Origin Energy decided to extend the operation of Australia's biggest, deadliest coal plant for another 2 years. By my calculation, the extra greenhouse gas emissions from this extension will cause probably around 8,000 extra human deaths. I absolutely guarantee that you have seen a shitload of headlines that are something like, Australia has a record-breaking amount of renewable energy. What the problem is that a lot of that new renewable energy is actually just going to meeting new demand. And a lot of that new demand, in particular in New South Wales, is going to new data center growth. The utility that owns this coal plant is also choosing to not build renewable energy. 10 years ago in South Australia, there was a massive blackout and it freaked out the entire media landscape. So now all you need to do to lobby for an extension to the coal plant is to just do some modeling and then just say the word blackout. And you've got everything in place for politicians to freak out and go, shit, yeah, we better extend those coal plants for as long as we possibly can. I don't want to have angry constituents sitting there in the dark. There's a massive coal mine in Western Australia that feeds into a coal power station, and you can see this in the article about the recent extension, also last week, of this coal mine. The government plans to shut the Collie and Muja generators in 2027 and 2029 respectively, in a move that some observers have labelled unrealistic. I have a new piece in Crikey out, which you can read, which is all about this pattern that has been on repeat for years now, where the extension of coal plants is basically framed as the only adult or realistic option. As renewable energy growth doesn't happen fast enough, and as data center growth continues to speed up in places like New South Wales and Victoria, this problem will only get worse. Australia's power sector emissions are constantly ending up at a level that is higher than what the previous projections said they were going to be. Things are not progressing anywhere near as fast as they should. This is all completely avoidable. And remember, solving climate change is about getting rid of fossil fuels as fast as possible. If you delay it, that means more emissions and more human death. Like, okay, optimistic, happy stories about renewable energy, they're good, but if they're 100% of the diet for climate communications, then that is really, really bad. The stickiness of coal in Australia's power grid is not like a speed bump or a blip or like a temporary setback. This has now become a systemic problem that is repeating for every scheduled closure of a coal-fired power station. So, okay, Australian media outlets need to stop falling for the trick of exaggerating the threat of blackouts and downplaying the physical, real, deadly consequences of operating a coal-fired power station. Australia's utility companies need to be held to account for failing to build renewable energy. It doesn't matter how cheap it is if it's not profitable for them, then they're just not going to do it. And they need to be forced through regulation to do so. That's what happened in the 2010s. The data center industry is causing massive demand growth already and is projected to cause even more demand growth in Australia. And for what? It's not clear. And like the energy industry kind of dismisses this as like a nothing burger, but the numbers do not lie. Demand growth is playing a role in sustaining coal and gas in Australia in the power sector. Okay, yeah. It's pretty ironic, I guess, that a major cycling event that is sponsored by one of Australia's worst fossil fuel companies, Santos, had to adjust their schedule to make up for the consequences of burning the product that their sponsor sells. But that's the find out part. The find out part is inevitable. The fuck around part is not inevitable. You don't have to fuck around. This is a choice being made so many times a day, and it's all avoidable and stoppable. But we have to learn to pay attention to the real problem first. Sorry, that was long. Go read my piece in Crikey. I think you'll enjoy it.